Welcome back to another episode of Local Search Tuesdays. This week I've got another awesome conference presentation to share with you. If you saw last week's episode, you know I was down in Myrtle Beach a few weeks ago for a few back-to-back conferences. This week I'm sharing my presentation from the Carolinas Independent Auto Dealer Association annual conference. It was a fun one and everyone raved about it, so of course I had to share it here with you. Kick back, it's about 25 minutes long, so let's get right to it. This is Ricky Bobby's Guide to Winning with Automotive SEO. I'm Greg, but you know that because you're watching this on my weekly video series. But if it's the first time you've seen my weekly video series, you can see weekly videos every Tuesday on SearchLab's blog. I'm also lucky enough to get to speak at conferences all over the world. Sometimes you see some speakers that aren't as engaging to watch, even though they might have awesome information. The background of their slide is plain white, and they use Arial font. And they pack each slide with bullet points, and they just sit there and read their bullet points, and that's not fun for anybody. So I really strongly believe that bullet points kill kittens. So we're going to keep all the kitties safe and not have any bullet points in today's presentation. And you saw the Ricky Bobby reference there at the beginning. I am a massive movie nut. I have 3 of my 4 limbs tattooed with movie portrait sleeves, and I always have a theme every time I do a presentation. And today's theme is comedy movies. We've got at least one comedy movie for every year in the last 50 years with a total of 90 references, and 36 of them are from 1985, which was the year for American film comedy. Let's kick this off. Why the long face? Are you spending too much time looking up at competitors that are ranking higher than you in local searches? It's really frustrating, right? I know that a lot of times when it comes to SEO, you might feel like you're clueless, but don't worry, I'm here to help today. I don't want to seem like I've got a huge head with its own gravity system, but I have a lot of awesome tips to share with you. And unlike some of those not so great speakers you may have seen in the past, I'm not going to talk out of my ass. I'm going to give you tips that you can use immediately. But keep in mind, there's no miracle pill. You can't just do a little bit of work here or there. You have to follow all of the tips and strategies that I'm going to be sharing with you today. But if you put in the effort and you know what you're doing, you'll be able to make your sites as visible and as awesome as the Flying Elvises. And just like a fat guy in a little coat, I'm going to squeeze in a ton of information for you here today. Now, I've been helping car dealerships with SEO for a decade and a half, but I spent 8 years of that time working exclusively with used car dealers. And obviously this was a used car dealer convention, so I was telling them they could beat the franchise guys in search results with just some good local SEO. The local algorithm is different from the traditional algorithm and considers additional signals, so it's important to understand those intricacies. And if you're not sure how local SEO works, I like to use pizza delivery as an example, and you can see it at the video right there. But if you're sitting at your office and you type 2 words into Google, pizza delivery, you get a list of all the pizza spaces right there by your dealership. And if you do the same search at home with the same 2 words, you get totally different search results. Even though you didn't specify a city or a neighborhood or use something like near me or nearby, you just said the same phrase. Google pays attention to your location in the real world, and that influences your visibility in searches. That explains why or how it works. This explains why you need it. Do a little back of the bar napkin math. Let's say that there are 5 new car dealers and 15 used car dealers in town, and that gives you 20 that are trying to show up on the first page of Google, but there's 13 spots available because you've got 3 in the map pack and 10 organic. But in the organic, you're going to have Auto Trader and Car Gurus and some sites like that. Let's pull those out. That gives us a final total of maybe 7 or 8 spots available on page 1. So if there's 20 dealerships, that's a lot of people that don't show up on page 1. And most of you are probably in situations where there's far more than 20. And that's why SEO is so important, because you've got to show up in one of those top view spots. It's also important to understand where the local algorithm displays search results. The clearest indicator that the local algorithm is at play is that you'll see a map pack, which used to be the map on top with the 3 results underneath, but they've moved the map over to the right now. So it's 3 results with a map to the right. Then you can click more locations at the bottom. That takes you to the local finder page, which shows you everything on the local search results that matches your search query. You could also go directly to Google Maps and search in Google Maps. That is also powered by the local algorithm. And the regular organic listings below the map pack aren't actually regular. They are also localized and powered by the local algorithm. Obviously, most dealerships want to show up in that map pack. So let's look at those factors. The second most important factor affecting visibility in the map pack is that you have a physical address in the city being searched. So if you're in the suburbs of Chicago and you want to show up for Ford dealer Chicago, you're probably not going to show up because your address isn't in Chicago, and that's what the searcher specified. But the most important factor that influences visibility in local searches is how far the search result is from the person doing the search. This is why a lot of car dealers can search for their phrases at the dealership and they rank number one in the map pack, but then they go home and they live an hour away and they don't show up in the map pack at all from their house because they're an hour away and the proximity is much further. So your location in the real world influences what you're going to see in your search results, but you can't influence either one of those. So let's look at the factors that you can influence. And to do that, it's really important to pay attention to a study that happens every year called the Local Search Ranking Factor Study, where they take the top 40-ish experts worldwide, send them a survey, aggregate all the answers from this really advanced survey to get a really good handle on what matters to Google's algorithm and is going to help influence better visibility for your dealership. So you get two pie charts. The first one shows you the factors that influence your visibility in the map pack or in Google Maps. And the second pie chart shows you the factors that influence your visibility in the organic search results below the map pack. The website platform that you're using has a huge influence on your potential for showing up in local searches. And in automotive, there are a lot of locked-in providers. You can't just go to WordPress and get your own site because you need the inventory feed and the specials and all the other things that car dealers need to be able to work. So you're going to use one of the preset website providers. And in the used car side of things, there's a race to the bottom for who can sell the cheapest website platform, but you get what you pay for. The cheap platforms typically don't perform as well because they've got subpar technology. So let's start with the website and the content on the site and how that content is optimized. Google doesn't care how much content you have. It just cares that you've got quality content. An easy way to think about it, if you want to show up as a search result when somebody types in a particular search phrase into Google, then you need a page of content on your website that's about that concept. And that page needs to be the best answer in the local area to the question that the searcher is asking. And it also needs to be about your dealership and the experience of doing business with you and about the local area. And there's a really easy way to test that. Take your homepage content, for example. Let's say we're a Ford dealer in Dallas. We want to test our content. We would change the name of the dealership to the name of a dealership in Seattle, let's say, and we would change Dallas to Seattle every time that word appeared. That's all we change. And then we would say, hey, does this content work as homepage content for this Ford dealership in Seattle? If it does, that means it's just generic Ford dealership content, and it's not really about my dealership in Dallas. So it's a great way to test your content. Another way to test your content is to read it out loud. Everything on your site should sound like something that you would say face-to-face to a customer that just walked in the front door of the dealership. So when you read it out loud, physically out loud to another person, you will hear the things that sound conversationally awkward. And that means you're probably working a little too hard to write for Google and not to write for humans. So read it out loud, make sure it sounds conversational. Once you have that awesome content, you need to optimize it so that it's easy for Google and for people to understand what the page is about. So I'm going to run you through the elements on the page that you need to optimize for each page of your site. Keep in mind, every time I mention keyword, that is the same keyword phrase for that page. You can't mix it up and target multiple phrases. It's also the same city. Can't mix it up and target multiple cities. It should be a single city only, not multiple cities. Don't pay attention to what your OEM is telling you to do if your OEM is telling you to mention multiple cities. So the first most important element is the most weighted element. It's the title tag. It's what shows in the little tab above where you type your URL. It's also what populates your blue text in your link when you show up as a search result in Google, most of the time anyway. So have that important keyword phrase and city there. Don't put your dealership name first. You're the only dealership name that you don't need to optimize for that. So instead, if you want to have your dealership name in there, throw it at the end for branding. Second most important element is the H1 heading. H1 heading is the big thick headline above the main body of text on the page, like the newspaper heading. Should be a little more conversational, have the same keyword and the same location keyword. It obviously needs to be in the content of the page, but if you've written the best answer in the local area and it's all about your dealership and about the local area, you won't have to optimize anything here. The platforms all allow you to set custom URLs for the internal pages of your site. And it's always better to have that keyword phrase and location phrase in the URL as well. And make sure you're using dashes to separate your words in the URL. Image alt text is another area that's most often ignored by dealerships and a lot of marketers. So alt text is a image descriptive phrase that is in the code that tells the browser to display an image. So it's behind the scenes and humans don't see it, but it explains what the image is and what's in the image. And most dealerships and a lot of marketers don't do anything with it. So it's a great way to establish additional locational relevancy. And then it's also important to have that keyword and city phrase in your meta description. Now, meta description is behind the scenes code. It doesn't have any influence on ranking or visibility, but it's what populates those couple of gray sentences underneath your blue link when you show up as a search result in Google. So you want to approach it like an ad and write something compelling there. You've got to have a blog, and you need to be posting to that blog regularly. And the reason is the main content pages on your site are bottom of funnel content. It's content that's there for customers to land on that page and convert into a lead. But customers will visit multiple dealership websites and visit your website multiple times before they turn into a lead, because they have a big research and sales process there. So the blog content is more middle to early funnel content. So it's all about getting exposure. It's brand building. It's like putting a billboard up. You want exposure to people as early as possible, because the sooner you're exposed to them, the more likely you are to be in consideration. In fact, if you write about useful, helpful, interesting information about the local area, it helps you show up when customers are looking for interesting or helpful information in the local area, but they're not looking to buy yet. So now they know about you before they're looking to buy, which really increases your chances of being in consideration later when they are looking to buy that car or come in for service. So if you need some ideas for local blog posts, check out my video. I've got 10 awesome ideas to use as a springboard to help you come up with your own local content to write about on the blog. So let's talk about inbound links next. So these inbound links are links that other websites point towards your dealership website, and they're heavily weighted in the local algorithm. And because we're talking about the local algorithm, that means we want to have local links. So that's links from local websites and local businesses. The good news is if you're involved in the local community, it's easy to get local links. And most dealerships are involved in the community and are philanthropically focused, which means probably a lot of opportunities to get some amazing local links. But I'm going to run through several concepts here if you're not familiar with link building, that will give you an idea of some things that you can do or things that you might already be doing that can help you get some links to your dealership website. So the first is local sponsorships. Now, Google's not okay with you buying links, but Google is totally okay with you buying a sponsorship that results in a link. So 5Ks, golf tournaments, Little League teams, Pee Wee football teams, Pee Wee hockey teams, these are all great opportunities to get some awesome local links by doing a little bit of sponsorship stuff. Local meetups are great too. So go to meetup.com and you can look for groups that have regular monthly meetings, and a lot of them are looking for meeting sponsors. You throw in $50, $60 a month to buy their snacks and their soft drinks, and you get some killer local links out of it. Find any way you can to get local bloggers to write about you, even if they say in the post, hey, I got a free oil change to write about my experience at this dealership service department. Who cares? You still get an awesome local link out of it. Talk to your staff about what they do in their free time, what their hobbies are, what they're passionate about. If they're a member of a local club or organization, especially if they're on the leadership group of that organization, it's going to be very easy for you to get links to the dealership. And look for neighborhood watch sites that have WordPress sites. A lot of neighborhood crime watch sites or crime watch groups have WordPress sites because somebody in the neighborhood knows WordPress. And if you can give them some sort of content that's useful to the neighborhood, you get some awesome links. In fact, if you can come up with a neighborhood specific exclusive discount or exclusive special, you can get some really awesome links that are relevant down to a neighborhood level. You can also use Google to do a lot of the work for you. So come up with your own list of potential ideas of link building and add your city name in and go in and search in Google. And Google will actually spit out a whole bunch of opportunities where you can go find some really awesome links. We also have an onboarding questionnaire that I'm going to share with you today. You can download it at that link right there. It helps kind of prioritize the concepts for local link building and also lists out things that have happened in the past, which could be extremely easy to grab low-hanging fruit for some killer local links. So now let's talk about customer reviews, which are obviously important for attracting humans by word of mouth, but they're also heavily weighted in Google's local algorithm. Most importantly, you need to be asking every single customer to leave you a review. Physically ask them. And you want to make sure you're leaving a way for them to, making it easy for them to leave a review. You don't want to just say, hey, go leave us a review on Google. So watch this video. It explains the process. I'm going to pull a couple of important points out. Really, you want to make it easy for them to do so by adding a page to your site. And this should be on your menu under About Us, by the way. But also make it an easy URL so everyone at the dealership knows to tell people to go there. So typically domain.com/reviews has a simple thank you message. Thanks for doing business with our dealership today. Let us know how we did. And then you link to your various review platforms. Don't expect for them to go find it themselves. And it makes it easy and it lets them choose where they're most comfortable leaving reviews. And a little bit of an advanced tip for you. If a customer leaves a review that includes important keywords, you'll start to rank better in searches for those keywords. Now, obviously, 1 or 2 isn't going to move the needle, but if you continually have customers using those phrases, it will help you rank better. Now, the problem is you can't tell people what to write. That can get you in a lot of trouble with Google and potentially might be illegal with FTC law, but you can Jedi mind trick your reviewers with just a few simple questions on that reviews page. So instead of just saying, thanks for doing business with our dealership, let us know how we did, and giving them links, say something like, hey, if you're not sure what to write, the best reviews offer specific details about your experience or tips for future customers of the business. You don't want to ask this many questions, but I listed a bunch here to give you some ideas. But instead of saying, hey, as a sales guy, hey, make sure you put my first and last name in the review, on the reviews page that I send them to, you have a question that says, was there someone on our team who really impressed you? And now it's more likely that organically that name's going to show up. Or, hey, did you buy a new car or a used car? If they bought a used car, they're going to mention used. And that's going to happen every time. It's going to be great. It's a great little subliminal trick that will help you get that language into the reviews. You want to make sure you answer every review that comes in, not just the good ones, not just the bad ones, but every review. And when you're responding to the negative reviews, remember, your response isn't for the person that left the bad review. You know who that person is. You should be reaching out in the real world to try to rectify that situation and turn that customer into a fan. But remember, your response is for every potential customer in the future who's going to read your reviews and wants to see how you handled that situation. So let's finish up with Google Business Profiles. And Kevin McAllister there is freaking out, not because he shaved and put the aftershave on, but because he's freaking about the dumbest rebrand ever. We're all going to call it Google My Business for years. Let's face it, Google Business Profile just doesn't roll off the tongue the same way. But your Google Business Profile is your new homepage. It's the first impression you make with any new potential customers. And it's also what allows you to show up in Map Pack results or in Google Maps results. It's really important to use your actual dealership name. Don't add extra keywords. Adding keywords to your business name could get you suspended. You want to make sure you're selecting the correct categories. There are 10 category slots available, and there are more than 10 categories that any dealership could select. So it's helpful to use this interactive list from Plepper Tools, which lets you put in a single category, and it will show you related categories that are most often chosen along with that category. You can also use George Nenny's awesome GMB Spy Chrome extension that will allow you to see all of the categories that your competitors have selected. Usually you can only see the primary category. So now this will let you see all of the categories that your competitors are using, which can help you figure out what you need to do. You should also make sure that you have a separate service department Google Business Profile set up for your service department. And if you have a parts department, obviously franchise dealers do, but used car dealers don't always have a separate parts department, but you're allowed to have a separate department for parts and a separate department for service. Set those up. It is a much better user experience and it enhances your ability to show up in searches. Make sure you're uploading a lot of high quality photos and make sure that you list a phone number with a local area code. Nobody needs 800 numbers anymore. And sure, I get it. You're probably doing call tracking, but you can do call tracking with a local area code tracking number. And you want to put the tracking number in there. It's best practice, actually. But put that tracking number as your primary number, so that's what the public sees, and put your actual local number as an alternate. And that way, Google's algorithm sees consistency. You want to make sure that you add UTM tracking to your website link because attribution is broken. A lot of times, mobile devices will not pass referral information to Google Analytics because of privacy issues. So Google Analytics is going to classify that traffic as direct because there is no referral information. So if you add UTM tracking with a code like this to the end of your URL in your Google Business Profile, it forces it to be attributed correctly in Google Analytics, so you get credit for all of the awesome SEO work that is happening. You want to make sure you're using Google Posts because they're basically free ads that show on your profile in Google search results. I did a Whiteboard Friday episode for Moz last year. It's packed with awesome information. This is 15 minutes of really dense information about how to be more successful with Google Posts. But the most important thing is to optimize the post thumbnail. Most people only pay attention to the content of the full post, but Google will crop in a smaller version of the image and only display the first few lines of the post. So if that's not compelling enough to click on, nobody's going to click and see the full post, and the post isn't going to work for you. But image cropping is really wonky. It's slightly higher than vertical center. It's really inconsistent. A lot of times dealerships will upload a photo of a car and half the car gets cropped out, so the thumbnail doesn't look great. So for better control over cropping those thumbnails, we created a Photoshop guide that you can download right here at this URL. And it looks like this. Anything in that white grid is going to be safe and show up in the thumbnail, and then the full image will appear when they click and see the full post. You also need to pay attention to the questions and answers section, which is actually a widget off of Google Maps that's just displayed in your Google Business profile. It allows anybody to ask you a question, and any random person out there can answer that question for you. And that should terrify you. Customers think that it's chat or some sort of instant messaging and that somebody is sitting there on the other end at your business waiting to answer the question, but it's really a community discussion widget. So it's meant to be that anyone can answer the question that gets asked. Questions can get multiple answers too. It's not just a single answer, and whichever answer has the most thumbs up or the most upvotes is the one that's displayed as the primary answer. So it's really important to pay attention to the questions and answers section and make sure that your answers are always upvoted to be the primary answers. You can even load your own questions in. Get rid of that FAQ page on your site. Nobody cares and nobody's going to go there. You can instead load those questions into your Google Business profile and then answer them and make sure that your answers are upvoted so you have an awesome pre-site FAQ experience. Now, I've got a 20 group scoring matrix that I've been using for years. And I use it at conferences too, whenever dealers want to get scored. And it basically is a down and dirty SEO audit. It looks at the 4 major factors that influence your organic visibility. So it's on-site content and how it's optimized. It's the links pointed at your site. It's your Google Business profile, and it's your reviews and how you respond to those reviews. If you'd like to get your dealership scored, obviously this is a re-recording of a live event, so you can't drop your card off. But if you pop me an email, it's just greg@searchlabdigital.com. I'll show you here in just a second. I'm happy to score your site for you. I won't try to sell you anything. Just trying to collect as much data as I can about the real world of what's going on with dealership SEO. Thank you so much for sticking through the last 20 minutes here with me. I know that was a bit painful because a whole lot came at you fast, but I was trying to get it done faster than the half-hour presentation I had in person. Now, when you're looking at search results in Google, you're not just going to stare blankly and drool because you'll understand how it all works. And maybe, just maybe, you'll be really excited to do some good SEO for your dealership. Peace out. That is the end. That was Ricky Bobby's Guide to Winning with Automotive SEO. There is my email address again. If you would like to get scored, just shoot me your email with the URLs of your sites. I'll be happy to score them for you. Or if you've got any questions, I have an open email policy. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have for me. And at the end, there is a list of all the movies by order of release date. So if you want a cool watch list along with the slides, I'm happy to send the slides to you. Just pop me an email and I will get them over to you. Thanks so much for sticking around and watching the whole thing. Thanks for sticking around to check out the presentation. That's definitely all the time we've got for this week, so you know what that means. Put your hand on the screen right here. We totally just high-fived because you learned something awesome. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week for another episode of Local Search Tuesdays.